All right, we are calling to order the Housing Human Welfare Committee meeting. It is Thursday, May 29th. The time is 6:36 p.m. Um, let's start with a call to order. Alderman Huntley,
Present.
myself, and Alderman Schandelmeyer will be here shortly. Is there a motion to approve the Housing Human Welfare meeting minutes from 4/21/25?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. Is there
No,
something I missed?
the agenda.
My apologies. Is there a motion to move the agenda as presented?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So there are several appointments on. We will move them as a block. I'll just read through very quickly. Linda Money to the Human Relations Commission, Joshua Hatch to the Human Relations Commission, Janet Norman to the Education Commission, Fortney Fish Stark to the Education Commission, Corey Makel to the Education Commission, Jane Weaver to the Education Commission. I know this name. I don't want to mispronounce it. Miss Collison Lee, my deepest apologies. I know your first name. I just don't want to mispronounce that. To the Education Commission, Mrs. Odessa Ellis to the Education Commission, Jessica Packler to the Education Commission, Pamela Bukowski to the Education Commission, Laura Graham Booth to the Education Commission, Elijah Herrick Blaine to the Affordable Housing and Equity Development Commission, a fantastic guy, Nancy Libson to the Affordable Housing and Community Equity Development Commission, Mr. Arthur Jim Edwards to the Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis, and Mrs. Teresa Vaughn Bond to the Affordable Housing Community Equity Development Committee. That's a really, really good committee. They do great work. Is there a motion to move all of those APs?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, so we'll move on to general discussion. ID 2825, starting with the Admiral Oaks update. This was just placed on so that they could give us a briefing. We did get a report from Planning and Zoning, and then understood that there was some follow-up with them. Is there a rep on from Planning and Zoning that would like to? I see Miss. There we go.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, sir. The latest development that we have is, that the engineering firm that they hired to do the analysis of where water's coming into the building has been on site. We've been on site with them, but thus far, they haven't come to any conclusions yet. They haven't given us a report. They haven't updated us on their findings. And they're well past the date that Director Jakubiak laid out in his letter. And that moved us to the point of issuing a citation to the property manager and the owner just this week. So we are in process of getting a citation for failing to maintain a watertight foundation, walls, and roof structure. So that is the broad category of the violation. There are a number of things cited in the letter, obviously, but we're kind of choosing the one that's most critical to the longevity of the building and the residents that are living in units that are impacted by water. By citing the foundation and a watertight structure. It's $1,000 fine, and the provision in the code that gives us that authority also states that we can issue that on a weekly basis if they haven't corrected it and they haven't engaged with us to bring a resolution to it. And so far, they may not be aware of it yet because we have to serve it to them. So it's kind of like they haven't had a chance to respond to it yet, is where we stand.
I greatly appreciate that. And I appreciate the enforcement and you all following up with that past the deadline. Uh, in a typical situation, once the citation is served, how long do they typically comply right away, or is this obviously this is a special case because with this particular property management and development group, we've had some serious communication issues, and so.
Correct. They're going to have an opportunity to respond to the citation. The citation comes with a deadline to respond to the citation. So they have, probably a week to respond to that citation and say, we're going to pay it and comply. We'll get you the report. That's one pathway. The other pathway is they could say, we want to contest this citation. We'll go to court over it. And at that point, the citation goes over to the Office of Law. They start scheduling it to get on the docket at court. And that would suspend any further issuing of like a second citation if they went that route, because at that point we've got the property owner and the management company in court. They are going to have to answer for it. We're going to present our case. They're going to present their situation, and the judge is going to decide at that point. If they pay the fine and say this is our pathway to compliance, that would pretty much put us on a track of, okay, now we have an end date of when they want to either pull permits or do whatever they need to do to fix the problem. It gives us an idea of what the scope of the problem is to know how extensive the work is going to be. So that's also a pathway where we can start making decisions. We can start figuring out what's going to happen next, how long this is going to take, what's going to happen. We can spread information to the residents that might be impacted. And so the only other avenue that things might go in this situation is the event that they don't respond to the citation, and they don't request a court date or an opportunity to present their case in court. So they just do nothing. So that's the scenario in which, okay, if they do nothing, we've got to issue a second citation, and we'll keep issuing them every week until they either decide to go to court or they pay and come up with their plan. So I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, that would be unprecedented if like a major property owner, a major property management company just, went that route. So I have a feeling like as soon as they get the citation, we'll probably hear from them and they will likely come forward with a plan. The last time I talked to Director Jakubiak about the situation, I felt like they were getting closer to knowing, like from our progress, we've seen them in the units. They were exposing sections of wall. While we were on site, we actually saw some water underneath some baseboard trim along the wall. And we pointed that out and discussed it with them. We did see some areas where they opened sheetrock up and we saw what looked like could be mold behind there. In which case, I think it really warranted the strong action that the director took to say, okay, we want you to get a major look at this. We want to take a comprehensive look at this, and we're going to push to get it done. I think the results that we were seeing on site with them warranted that activity. And, I just can't explain why it's taking longer than expected at this point. So I feel like they were initially the engineering firm was sort of gonna give us a report based on their experience without really looking underneath the covering. And when we kind of got there and told them, like, look, you're going to have to pull up the carpet, pull back the wall, let's see what's actually going on in there. They took another look and decided to bring in a mold remediation company that can do some cleanup work, and give them the estimates on that part of it. So, I think they were on the right track. It's just moving too slowly.
Okay. Well, I just have a couple of quick points, and then I will definitely turn it over to my colleagues to ask questions. But again, I really appreciate obviously you all being there and you going into detail about some of the things that you all seen on the property. Takes me back to October of 2023 when we actually had the Emerald Oaks residents before our committee, and the alderwoman then went back out into the community, and Alderwoman Tierney immediately said that there was some sort of issues with the plumbing or water distribution. She noticed it right away, and so I guess I have two questions. The one, first would be for planning. The second maybe for law. Do we have any units been taken offline? Due to these issues. And then the second question: at what point do we take them to court instead of waiting? Just because it kind of has been a while, while no official documentation may have been filed. I think there have been ongoing discussions, between the departments and their team.
Well, the first part, we have seen some different problems. Like over time, there have been different problems there with water that came from leaky pipes or other problems that weren't necessarily coming from foundation issues. So there's kind of like, there is multiple problems we've experienced over the years. At this point, what we've told them is that we are not issuing licenses for any of the ground floor units in the garden apartment buildings. And that action has been ongoing. They're aware of it. I can't tell you if there are occupants that have been displaced over that. They may be staying in an unlicensed unit at this point. And that I have to run down and try to find out the ultimate status of how many families are still there versus how many have been relocated. As far as the issuing the citation is the step that takes them to court. So the citation is a municipal infraction. It's a municipal citation that does two things. It levies a fine, and it also requires them to abate the violation. And that's where they have to come up with their plan and whatever permits they might need. But failure to do both of those things, pay the fine and come up with their plan to abate, will result in us taking it to court. So that is the process. There may be other methods to take them to court. That's outside of what we would normally do, though. I don't know what avenue or what process that would involve.
Well, I'll defer then that later, actually to email or something, because I know they had previously had a, lawsuit that was, about to be filed or something on behalf of the residents. And so I'll save the law questions for later, and then just defer to Alderman Sandelmeyer or Huntley that may have a question.
Questions at this time, Mr. Chair?
Alderman Huntley.
Not for me either. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's awesome. So again, I really
sorry if I can just also say thank you very much to Mr. Manassa. I know you've got a tough job trying to enforce our code, and I think this is such an example of how important it is. And so we appreciate you doing your job, whether you're getting yelled at by the property owners or the property residents. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, just thanks for following up with that. We will see what happens. And if you could, yeah, let me know if there are still families in those units, because, you know, while we couldn't get it passed on the city level, I think the state just requires them to be transferred to a unit of equal size. And if the property cannot find a unit of equal size, then they have to rehouse them. The problem that we had with the rehousing was that people were having transportation issues, getting to work, food, all of that. And that's what we were trying to get done on a city level. And so we'll have to figure that all out. Alderman Schandemeyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually do have one quick question. What is the consequence if they do still have people living in an unlicensed unit?
Well, the consequence to that is complicated. Technically, if we post it as an unlicensed unit, it gives the tenant notice, but there really isn't there isn't anything that compels them to get out unless we condemn the unit. So that's a separate determination. If we decide to condemn the unit, then they have to leave, and the landlord has to provide accommodation of some sort. And at this point, like, as far as I'm aware, we haven't taken the step of actually condemning the units. The withholding the license does put them in a position where court cases have said that they can put their rent in escrow. They don't have to pay their rent to the property owner. And that's a legal question that I don't want to get into because I'm not as familiar with that part of it. But it has not been condemned at this point. Now, if we have cause to do so, we will take a look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Schandemeyer. Any further questions on this ID? Hearing none, we will close this out. Again, thank you very much, Ms. Manassa, and we will just follow up with you offline.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Gay. I will get back to you through the director on those issues.
Appreciate it. Awesome. Have a good one.
You too.
Our next ID is ID 10525, which is Play Annapolis discussion, birthed out of obviously some concern in the budget. We did have an opportunity to hear from representatives from the organization at our, I think it was the council meeting on the 12th, May 12th, if I'm not mistaken. And so this is our opportunity to, again, follow up with their concerns, hear from our department, and see if there's anything that can be remedied. Keep in mind, the amendments, at this point, any amendments that will come forward or any amendments to the budget, you need 5 votes. And so I just want everybody to keep that in mind. And so no promises will be made tonight. But from, what I've heard from my colleagues and from the administration, everybody, wants to remedy this. And so I just thought it was important to follow up on your concerns and have the department address them as well, and let them, speak further about some of their plans as well. So let's start with first, Play Annapolis. If the team wants to introduce themselves and give any background, that'd be fantastic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Tomasini. I'm board member of Play Annapolis, former member of the Recreation Advisory Board, and I spoke at the meeting on May 12th. Thanks for having us. This is great. Thank you so much.
And I think you it's muted, Mr. Morgan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stan Womack. I'm CEO of the Annapolis All Stars. I also spoke at that meeting. We are a member of Play Annapolis, so I'm here tonight in representing Play Annapolis.
And I think we all have the attachment. If not, it's there. If anyone who wants to use that for reference, I guess I'll turn it over to the team first, and then we'll just ask questions as we go along.
You want to turn it to the Rec and Parks team, or you want to turn it to?
Oh, I'm sorry, to Play Annapolis, yeah.
Okay.
And if you wanted to just go off of the notes, or we have here attached in our agenda your slides as well.
Got it. I can probably share my screen if you give me.
I don't know if they allow.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt for just a second? We are unable to see an agenda or an attachment.
Ms. Jackson, would you mind shooting this out quickly?
Yeah, I can't see an agenda either.
Okay, that'll be shared. And again, we're just going through some of the highlights. We're not going to discuss the entire 28 slides. But we have had this for, I'm referencing the council. We have had this since the 12th. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Of course. She'll send that out. All right, Ms. Tomasini, you can get started, and Ms. Jackson is sending that out to everybody on the agenda.
To be honest, I didn't realize this is what we were doing, so I'm working on finding that slide. Sorry to not.
No, you're fine.
But I'm close. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the 28-page slideshow. That is not something I'm prepared to do. But basically, we were just at City Council because we did look at the budget that was put forth by Rec and Parks, and we feel like we have been working hard over the last few years to just work on recreation opportunities in Annapolis. For background, our mission is to inspire collaboration, build resources, and establish partnerships so all youth have access to recreation and sports year-round. And that's what we're advocating for with the budget at Rec and Parks. Two of the things that stood out to us were the $32,000 for the football team, which we just were surprised at because we have a very active recreation league that is offering a football program through the All-Stars. And also we pointed out at the city council meeting that field space is already limited. City field space is limited, and to add another football program would really drain the resources, not only in kids and coaches and money, but also, affect the All-Stars that are running a successful program, not to mention our other partners who are also looking for field space. So no need for that. And then we also talked about the floor, the electric floor in the Stanton Center was the E floor in the Stanton Center was the other thing that we kind of identified that we were surprised at based on the basic needs in recreation that we've kind of been advocating for. Childcare is missing at 3 Title I schools in the city of Annapolis: Eastport Elementary School, Tyler Heights, and Georgetown East. I know just from being a parent at Eastport that space is an issue there, and that's part of the reason why childcare is not being offered. But these schools need aftercare. School gets out at 2:30. It is surprising to me that the other schools are able to pull it off, and these 3 Title I schools are being left behind. So
can I?
Yeah, go ahead. Interrupt me.
If you wouldn't mind, I want to ask a question on that point. I'm jotting notes, and we'll come back to the others, but this one in particular. So they have the funding as just a space, or do they need the funding as well?
I'm not sure. It's offered at the other elementary schools in the city, but it is not offered at these 3 schools. I happen to know that at Eastport, because my kids go there, part of the problem is space. And for 1 year, the program was running at Pitt Moyer instead of Eastport. So there was transportation. Mr. Chucky was bringing the kids over to Pitt Moyer, and that ended. And I don't know why Tyler Heights and Georgetown East don't have the option.
I will then just shoot a message to the education commission so that we can find that out ahead of our meeting. I think that is something that I don't know if it has to do with financing. I think is something that the city council should just look into. Obviously, not making any commitments. I know the chair of the finance committee is here and has worked incredibly hard on this year's budget. So,
and the other thing is that when you look at County Rec and Parks childcare, they are offering it at all Title I schools. So there must be a way that they're figuring that out.
All right. Do you want to jump in now, or you want to wait till the end, Director Johnson?
If you want me to speak to the issue that we're talking about right now, I'd be happy to address it. Lakeisha Simmons will also probably have more to add. We are happy to help with the licensed after school program. Our program is licensed, which means that we have to have dedicated space. We have asked the principal for space, and the principal does not have space. So sans any space, it would be difficult for us to run a licensed after school program at that location. The other locations have various and different challenges. So this is probably a question better suited for Anne Arundel County Public School System, because if they don't give us the space, it's very difficult for us to be able to run a program.
I do know that when Tyler, go ahead.
We currently are not budgeted for those sites. So budget is also an issue. At many of our licensed aftercare programs, part of the challenge now is actually finding dedicated staff. The staff have to have 40 to 60 hours of training, and we need them as kind of somewhat permanent part-time. And the hours are a little bit tricky because it's essentially 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock. So we need someone who's available to work those part-time hours, which are usually in the middle of the day. So it's difficult to find someone who works well with children, who has that training, who has the background check and all those sorts of things. Ms. Simmons, as well as Mr. Lloyd, kind of scour the community and the area and looking for staff. I've even asked them, well, what about the teachers? But unfortunately, a lot of teachers work very hard during the day and don't want to kind of continue along. And it would be very difficult for us to work in another space that is not a school system space, because of the rules and regulations that the school system have work very well with the rules and regulations of the licensing, the Maryland State licensing program. I will have Ms. Simmons kind of add some other information about us having enough people registered and those sorts of things.
Thank you. And I also just am curious quickly, how many after school programs do we currently run or that are budgeted for the FY26 budget? And then my second question was there ever at any point an agreement where Pitt Moyer, was it Pitt Moyer or Stanton that was used to run a collaborative effort with Eastport?
It was Pitt Moyer.
Okay. Yeah. Is that, was that, ended because of space at PIP, or?
That predates me. I'll let Ms. Simmons speak about that. But one of the things that we did reach out to the school system initially for was to provide transportation and have Pitt Moyer be a stop for the bus stop, so to speak. And we talked to Dr. Bedell, and at the time he had a major transportation issue, and he could not kind of overcommit. His main goal was getting youth to their homes. So since we have not been able to have Pitt Moyer be a stop along the way so that we could have an after school program. And I'll let Lakeisha Ms. Simmons speak to how many sites we have and those sorts of things.
Okay, and the fantastic thing is we also have the director of transportation on, which Mr. Moore, do not feel obligated to get on camera at this point, but just pointing that out. I'll let Ms. Simmons respond, and then I'll immediately go to Alderman Schandelmeyer.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. We are currently at 5 sites in the city, and I will make one correction. Because we are licensed, our staff have to have 90 hours of dedicated childcare services. So clock hours for training for us to remain licensed. So that is the difficulty there. We are at 5 sites. We were at Georgetown East. Part of the difficulty at the other schools is registration. We have offered and opened up and tried to run the program at Georgetown East. If we don't have enough staff enough registrants, we cannot run the program. And we don't have people that register for the program at that site. We offered it again last year, opened up the registration. We had 1 person register. We cannot run a program with 1 person.
I appreciate that very much. And that was at Georgetown East?
Georgetown East, yes.
Okay. Which is unbelievable because Bay Ridge Gardens, a community that has 250 kids, is immediately adjacent to that. But I know that they have expressed previously issues with registration in other programs as well there. And so, Alderman Schandelmeyer.
Thank you. So when we stopped offering, I got 2 questions now. One, so when we stopped offering bus services from the Eastport area to PIP, that came around the same time as the bus driver shortage. So that would have been around 2021 then, when we were dealing with all those wildcat strikes with the driver shortages.
I'm sorry, let me back up. We were running the program and transporting children to the Pitmore Recreation Center under the Annapolis United program. And that's when Mr. Lloyd was working, was a contracted employee under the Annapolis United. Okay. When the school year ended and that program ended, Mr. Lloyd's position changed and we didn't have the opportunity to continue that program.
I'm sorry.
You finished, ma'am.
I will add too that we do provide transportation. Our Stanton after school program provides transportation. Lakeisha, can you share the schools again? Because they pick up, I believe, from 2 schools and bring the youth back to Stanton. So we do not have the ability with our vehicle to provide transportation, but we do for Stanton community. And Lakeisha, what schools are those again?
The schools where Stanton Center picks up are at Mills Parole and Georgetown East. And we currently offer childcare at Mills Parole, Germantown, Hillsmere, West Annapolis, and Annapolis Elementary School.
Okay, and so
can you repeat those sites for me, please?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Walter S. Mills Parole, Germantown, Hillsmere, West Annapolis, and Annapolis Elementary School.
Alderman, let me just ask one thing really quickly here, because I don't want us to get in a position of pitting school programs against one another. My question, though, if there was sufficient registration at Eastport Elementary or Tyler Heights Elementary School, will you have the funding to start the program, or would one of the other programs, because correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if West Annapolis or Annapolis Elementary are Title. Okay.
Annapolis Elementary is.
Okay.
Annapolis Elementary is a Title I.
Okay.
How many students
So,
do
oh, Alderman Gay, I just want to answer your question. No, if we had the registrants, we could not at what you said Eastport, correct,
Yeah,
Alderman?
yeah, Eastport. You explained earlier that the problem with Eastport was the staffing.
Well, it's staffing at all additional sites. Right now, we currently have staff, but we are so short-staffed and so difficult to find staff that sometimes Mr. Lloyd has to actually go and fill in for the teachers. And when I say teachers, the teachers in the after-school program is what I'm referring to. So we would need to be able to find staffing. We would also need space, dedicated space at those two schools, and we would need registration as well, registration, as you mentioned, and we currently are not funded for any of that.
Okay. Alderman Schandelmeyer.
One last question. How many registrants are needed to run the program?
That would depend on the site. So right now, if we have 8 registrants, we can run a site.
Okay. That's all I have on this subject, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. And my last question, and then we'll go to Mr. Womack. If you wouldn't mind, either Director Johnson or Ms. Simmons, provide the committee with a rough estimate of, cost for a program, because, if we budget it and you have the funds available and we get 8 registrants, there could be a successful program at least in the fall or whatever, or how long it operates. If we budget it and you can't operate the program, you could use the funding for other things with council support within recreation. Alderman Huntley, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what are your thoughts on, because you are the finance chair, and so ultimately this has to go before you. What are your thoughts on the amendments on the second and this conversation? I'm sorry.
Can I just add before Alderman Huntley, the main issue that I want to make sure that we emphasize is the staff. So if we get 8 registrants, we still have to have qualified staff to run the program.
And when we're talking about staff, the issue is not whether the money is budgeted, it's whether you're able to hire them, correct? Yes, I'm seeing the director nod.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes, we've had major issues, and we're not trying to be naysayers. It's just that difficult. And I've challenged my team. We've brainstormed. We've thought different ways. It's just very difficult to find essentially a unicorn.
Yeah. Well, and Maryland has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. So it's, at least for now, a tight labor market.
Well, and people have shared, well, there are a lot of people who are unemployed because we've reached out to them, but unfortunately their unemployment will stop once they get a part-time job. And so for them, it's not worth it. We've tried that too, just so you know.
So Alderman Gay, I think what I'm hearing is that this is not a situation where we need a budgetary fix. As a general rule, if we were looking at a budgetary fix, I'd say that we need to be thinking about how do we, if we're talking about a budgetary fix, we're talking about more money. My answer is, if we're saying more money somewhere here, then we need to be finding less money somewhere else. So it becomes a question of where would that come from? But maybe the more win-win solution, and I'd be interested to hear from the director on this, sounds like a very similar problem to what the police department is dealing with, right? They have a significant number of unfilled positions, and it's not, in my somewhat informed opinion, it's not that they are not paying enough. It's that we have a tight labor market, and some other maybe non-budgetary issues. But one of the things that we are seeing in the budget is some funding to provide hiring bonuses for the police department. So I'd be curious to get the director's response if that's something that you think would actually make a difference in trying to get those people.
And again, Director Johnson, I'm sorry, I want you to respond to that as well, but I need clarification on this because I have two different things written down, and I just want to make sure the funding is in FY26 if necessary.
No, no, we don't currently have funding for additional sites in FY26.
Okay. And
we
so
have funding for our current sites in FY26.
Okay. And so that would be the task. And you know what? Maybe we cross that bridge later on. If registrants are interested, that's why the council has supplemental appropriations. And so, all right, please respond to Alderman Huntley's question. My apologies.
Sure. Unfortunately, I don't think it would help because we're looking at part-time employees. There's traditionally no kind of contract where you have to work a year and then you get your bonus at the end. We could do something like that, but that's not advantageous to people to sign up now. They want a bonus now if you're getting people. And
Right.
when you're dealing with childcare, I'd much rather prefer to get someone who's in it because that's what they want to do instead of a bonus, because we're dealing with people's most valuable, family members. So that poses somewhat of a challenge. Additionally, we have tried to remove barriers. The training that Ms. Simmons mentioned, they used to have to pay for it themselves. Now we do supply the training, and any paid training that they do, we will pay for. So that's a barrier that we've worked to remove. And I think that's working very well. We can track it a little bit better, and they're not coming out of their pocket for a part-time job. So we've done some things to try to make it easier and more advantageous and more attractive for people to want to do this, to work at our licensed childcare locations.
Good. Thank you for giving us a straightforward answer on that.
Mr. Womack?
Yeah, I just have one question. Director Johnson, you had mentioned that there was a space requirement. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more? What are the requirements for space that you would need?
And then after that, so that what we'll do is, refer the questions to the committee, and then we'll allow the director to respond. And I should have said that at the beginning. My apologies. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Sure. The space requirements are we need dedicated space at the school location. Once we have dedicated space at that location, licensing would then come in and look at the space and see if it passes, and would determine how many youth we're licensed to have in our after-school program.
So there's not a particular amount of space that you would need. It's just based on how many kids are in the program. Am I hearing that correctly?
I don't want to speak for licensing, but there's certain, we need an ingress and egress. We need two entrances and or exits. We need a lockable cabinet. We need there are certain spatial requirements. Those are kind of listed on, I think, the Maryland Department of Licensing for Department of Education, those requirements, but we need dedicated space. And so the principal has not given us dedicated space, and they're saying that they're maxed out and they don't have any space. And we certainly understand that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Womack. I think also I'm adding a note to reach out to our board member, who does a very good job of responding and has fantastic constituent services. All right, let's put a pin in the childcare. I'll allow Ms. Tomasini to continue where she sees fit, and then we'll jump back into any further questions.
Thank you. I do want to make a couple notes on childcare, because when we did get together as a team at Play Annapolis, some of these things did come up. Tyler Heights is a new school and was built with a dedicated childcare space. Georgetown East is sounds like is getting bused to Stanton Center. So I wonder if that would be a solution. And for us, it was just if more budget is needed to hire staff, the E floor is hard, it's hard to swallow, along with the field maintenance issues. The field maintenance issues are longstanding and have been communicated many times. And we're just looking, when I looked today at the comp plan, one of the things I saw was lack of a modern linear field complex, and that's going to be addressed in the master plan for recreation. So I just think, and I don't think, Play Annapolis as a whole, we showed up to speak at City Council to say, let's make sure that our basic needs are being met, and childcare is a perfect example of that, along with field space and investments in field space. And part of the issue is that it's county-owned fields being managed by the city, and so the investments are just not being made by either the county or the city. And you can look more at our slideshow. It's 28 slides long. Our executive director is very thorough, and we're thankful for that. But I just would ask that you consider, all the work that the nonprofits do to serve kids in Annapolis, and give us a seat at the table.
I appreciate that very much. So we'll jump into the field space later, because I've just pulled up slides 22 or 21 and 22 and 23, which discusses that. Are there any other questions in regards to anything else from my colleagues, Alderman Schandelmeyer or Huntley?
Well, one thing I do want to note on the E floor in the Stanton Center is, I think that is a bit of oversimplifying what its capabilities are going to be. It's going to add it's going to be able to turn that space into being able to use a lot of recreation opportunities in one single space. I know it does sound a little high tech, but it's going to allow a lot of quick and easy seamlessness that multi-paint lines maybe don't. And I'm personally think it's a pretty innovative solution to something, along with some of the other educational opportunities that I've been told it might offer. So look, I understand it sounds a little, why do we need this? This sounds frivolous, but with the rapid changing of the sports lines and the ball lines that it'll be able to offer, I think it's a pretty exciting opportunity.
So, all right, we'll start, because I have just three things really on my list: the program, the field space, the football program, and the E floor. So we're starting with the E floors. Question: what you have listed here, I'd like to have maybe the director respond to either possible solutions or ongoing projects that you all have. For example, obviously we just discussed the transportation. Director Johnson, do you care to speak to
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I certainly have not gotten those slides. So any reference you're making to a document, I don't have, and I don't know whether Director Johnson has.
All right, just give me 2 seconds.
Yes, I just opened it up. So certainly wasn't prepared for these slides, but that's okay. We are in Recreation and Parks, and we pivot when we need to pivot. So Alderman, you said slide 21 and 28. I'm sorry, 21 and 22.
Yes.
That was in reference to the field, but now we're actually talking about slides 25.
Oh, 25. Okay.
Yeah, which references the esports arena and gym. Some of their concerns were obviously, as opposed to, we could be investing in providing transportation, simplifying the scholarship process, etc. As you can see there, I'd really just be curious if you could explain further some of the transportation discussions that you all have had, and concerns there, or if there are fixes, and then obviously touch on the scholarship.
Okay, so a couple of things. This is the first time I'm seeing this. I do know that Play Annapolis has presented or testified at council about our scholarship or a scholarship program. So a couple of things. We are happy to work with Play Annapolis. We do meet quarterly with Miss Garrity. Many of these issues have not come up, so we're happy to respond. Let's see, simplify our scholarship process. As I've shared before, we don't have a full-fledged scholarship process. I do know that Play Annapolis offers scholarships, and that's one of the things that they pride themselves in. We can only work on so many challenges at a time, and so we are ticking them off. We have a finite number of staff. We've started with getting registration online. That was a big, heavy lift. We heard from many people in the community that they want to be able to register from anywhere in the world. They don't want to stand in lines at Pip Moyer. So we worked on that to make that happen. At the same time, we heard about our sports and permitting process. And it was too cumbersome. It was one person. So we testified and presented on Tuesday how we had the sports symposium. We listened to what people said, the changes that we made, and we mirrored Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks permitting process and what we did as far as that was concerned. So we are working on the scholarship process. And well, let me say this, we aren't working on it yet. It is on our list of things to do, but we can only handle so many things at a time. So that's something that we're working on. Provide transportation to facilities like Pip Moyer and Stanton Center. We do provide transportation to Stanton currently. We had worked with the school system to provide transportation to Pip because they have the built-in transportation. So that's something there. We do have the bus that transportation. I know Director Moore is on. He was kind enough to do all the paperwork and figure out how we could get a bus to replace one of our buses. And that was done. Again, we have a staffing issue because our bus drivers are bus drivers who work for the school system. So we utilize them during the times when the school system isn't utilizing their buses, which would be during the summer. And so they really work for us during the summer and transport our youth. I did want to address too Tyler Heights because we've talked with the administration at Tyler Heights and they say they don't need an after school program because they do have clubs after school. So, it's helpful for us to kind of share the conversations that we've had because I think the assumption is that we're not trying to do anything and, these ideas come and we do explore ideas and we do, have ideas of our own as professionals. As it pertains to the esports arena, the esports gym, when I first got here, I heard major complaints from the community, the Clay Street community and Stanton community, that if you look at Stanton, you look at Pip, the two don't look the same and they don't look like they've been managed by the same department. We did the research, we looked at the information, and it's been since 2000 was the last major renovation with the basketball court being installed. So that basketball court is 25 years old. So it's not it's not an either or, it's really both end. We put money in the budget and requested for a linear field for Weems Wayland to be renovated. We've been working on that for about a year and a half now to put in an artificial turf field. Alderman Gay, you were kind enough and you had the foresight to put in $200,000 last year so we could look at Collison and the ability we may have to make that into a linear field. And so the study is currently going on. And we will have results back from that rather shortly. The money for the esports arena was initially spearheaded by then Delegate Henson, now Senator Henson, and she granted the city $1.2 million. So we can't take that money and move it over to aftercare after school. It's specifically for that purpose, and it's for a capital improvement purpose. So all of our constituents, we have to look at their concerns and look at their interests. And I really can't put one over another. We have to look at them with some type of equality. And so I've heard from the Clay Street community. Our staff have heard from the Clay Street community. and the elected officials in that community. And so this has been, renovations for Stanton has been something that's been ongoing. And they're certainly deserving of it too. They need renovations. There's a young man who was actually shot on at the bus stop. And many people don't know the same young man who was shot in the foot is the same young man whose brother was shot and killed at the Boys and Girls Club bus stop. So that poor young man, how must he feel about going to school and trying to get to school? And how does he feel about education? So we're trying to keep our youth involved and engaged in education. And I'll never forget Mitchell Silver, who was the superintendent of New York City Parks. And he looked at communities that had not had an investment of $250,000 or more in over 30 years. And Stanton's coming up on that 30-year mark, but they put investments in. They built a new park. They had the ribbon cutting. And there was a young man waiting outside of the gates. And so Director Silver was like, "Why are you out here? Come on in." And the little boy said, "I can't come in. That park is too nice for us. We don't have anything like that in my community." And I feel as though the Stanton community feels the same way because they have not had those major renovations and they've been overlooked for years. So my response to Play Annapolis is that it's both ends. We're doing both and we're looking at both. So I think that will help the community in totality. And the long and short of it is the money that we have for Stanton can't be redirected to another program. It's for capital.
So my only question out of that, and I also have the slide from ARP Rex and Parks from the 27th. So I've got both things going on. I guess I'm going back to the transportation piece because I agree with you, Director, that we shouldn't have to pick or choose. Let's try to fund both. And I agree. It's with you. The Stanton desperately needs the investment. But I agree with some of the concerns that Play Annapolis have laid out, and particularly I keep coming back to the transit and linking that to recreational opportunity. So is there any, and I probably should have had the Education Commission here to ask this or to just be a representative as well, because they work close with the school. Does the city have a single route that either goes directly to Title I schools or to communities that we've labeled at risk and need to be connected to recreational activity? Is there a bus that goes out and picks up and drops off and then says, okay, let's round everybody up at 8 or whatever, and then have a drive back through communities in a set route? Does something like that exist? And if it doesn't, is that something that you all thought about and maybe just don't have the staff at this point to, kick a program off like that?
I'm not aware. Certainly our mission is not necessarily transportation. I do want to kind of remind everyone that HACA has had recreational opportunities in their individual communities. And so for multiple reasons, they no longer offer those. We have stepped in as requested and have been able to reopen the HACA pool, which has been a huge lift for us, particularly in light of lifeguard shortages. But council was gracious enough to fund that process. And our very own Jennifer Rafiq was so amazing that she was able to piece together lifeguards to run that program. And herself, even she works in excess of 90 hours every 2 weeks to be able to run those programs. And she herself even goes over and lifeguards. So, I'm very cautious about overextending our staff. So, I would love to say, yes, let's do it. However, we have major challenges identifying staff. For summer, we had challenges with our summer staff. We could not find camp counselors We revised the advertisements. It's staff are not falling out of the sky now for whatever reason. People want to work differently, and it's difficult to try to get someone to come and work outside in the heat with many kids, or work these 4 hours when they could go to Chipotle and work, and in some instances make more money and leave with meals for the whole family that night. So it's very difficult, and it has to be someone who's in it for kind of the love of making a difference in a child's life.
Alderman Schennemeyer, I see you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is partially a kind of a question for Director Johnson and partially a question for Director Moore. So I do understand staff shortages, but I think that maybe trying to get the transportation system going directly into some of these areas where we do actually have staff coverage is a shorter term solution, at least to get us through while we try to figure out some of these other investments to get everything else up to par, or up to where we want to keep as many folks as happy as possible. So where we currently have staff coverage, are we maxed out on what those staff members can handle as far as number of children go? Is there room to take on more children from other areas where we're not getting coverage?
I can speak at all of our sites at the I'm sorry. Were you going to speak, Director Johnson?
Please speak.
At our 5 sites, we are maxed out at each of our 5 childcare sites with an active waiting list. Parents call me, email me, asking if parents, even in May, if parents have withdrawn so that they can register their children at those 5 sites. We are maxed out at our 5 sites.
So even if we had effective transportation, it wouldn't matter just because they're already filled.
They're already filled, and they're at capacity with what we're licensed for at those sites.
So even if we
we're licensed by the state.
So even if we hired more staff for those sites, it wouldn't matter because we have the maximum number of children, period. So it's.
But not at the schools that aren't being served.
Okay.
There's an inequity happening.
Yeah.
That we just are advocating to be solved.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out where I know we have actual space that is licensed and approved and what we can do here.
And maybe that's what we're saying about the budget. This is something that is missing. Not all kids are being offered the same thing from Rec and Parks when it comes to aftercare. And that's what we're saying about the budget. We're surprised that this continues to be ignored.
Alderman Schennemeyer.
Well, I would just like to say it's not ignored. I think that's an unfair.
Director Johnson.
I apologize. You're correct. That's unfair.
And
it's a problem that has happened.
And the sense that I'm getting is we could, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, the sense that I'm getting is we could take every single penny that we have this budget right now, cut all of police, cut all of fire, cut all of transportation, put it all into after school care and try to get into one of these school sites that doesn't have care right now. But that would be moot because it's just they're not licensed by the state to take it. Is that a correct interpretation, or am I very far off?
You are correct. The state determines how many children we can have based on the space we're given by the system. Absolutely. And so there's some schools where we've asked for more space, and unfortunately some of our space has been decreased, and I get it. The principals have competing priorities, and they just don't have the space to offer us.
Okay.
Alderman, I'm wondering if we did have children and family success for 2 years where nonprofits were able to fill in that gap. And, that was a grant that we ran from August through December. It was essentially a fall after school program grant. it was only $50,000. And so I think we only 5 groups ended up getting to split 10,000. And then later on, maybe some groups fell out, so they ended up having a little more funding. But it sounds like something like that. It also sounds like what you've specifically discussed in our council meeting Tuesday night.
Just a shortage of providers, shortage of staff on all childcare options. It's private and public care. I have another question though on the Stanton Center thing for the budgetary question from the state. So we have to apply that to the Stanton Center. So does it have to be for one specific type of project? Can we decide what other ways we want to renovate it in, if we so choose, as long as it goes towards the Stanton Center? Like, let's say we want to make the Stanton Center just an entirely indoor pool facility. Could we do that as long as we're spending it on and this is all entirely hypothetical. I'm just trying to get a sense of what we are and are not allowed to do here with that money.
So we have a courtesy to Senator Henson as well. We've presented this idea to her, and she is absolutely in line. We could certainly change, but we would want to make sure it's okay with the person who kind of got us the funding, so to speak.
Because that could risk getting that pulled, is the implication. Okay, thank you.
I just have a question. There's the money that is given by the state.
Ms. Tomasini?
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Just one second. I'm sorry. Because Mr. Womack had his hand, and then I'll come directly to you.
I can't raise my hand for some reason, so sorry if I'm interrupting.
Oh, no, you're
Sorry
fine.
about that, Emily. Yeah, on the Stanton Center, has there been any thought about the more parking at the Stanton Center? Because there's none there now. You've probably got 3 or 4 spaces, and that's about it. So if we put all of this into the Stanton Center, how are people gonna access it?
I disagree with that statement. There's a huge parking garage there that is utilized during the day. Very little of it is used at night. Director Moore is here, so maybe he can share, but I feel like it's at least 200 parking spaces, maybe 4, I don't know. But it's a huge parking garage right diagonally from Stanton. That's within maybe a 3-minute walk.
Is that free parking?
I think a whole lot of that community's problems happen because we put a whole lot of parking spaces in that neighborhood and tore down a whole lot of other buildings to do it.
Well, absolutely.
That's just a logistics and space issue to add parking
my
spaces.
Question is the parking free?
Parking is not free. There's 2 parking garages. The one that City Asset owns is the one called Gott's Court on Calvert. The other one, I don't know why it escapes you right now. Maybe it's the time of day. That one is free, I believe, on weekends, but we can check and get information back to you. The other garage that we're speaking of, the closer one to Stanton Center, and the other one is just right across the street, so every bit of 20 more yards. These are all, quarter mile, less than in distance, short walk.
I'd just throw out there's a third one that's also a short walk, which is definitely free after 5 p.m. and on weekends.
That would be the Calvert Street, the one over on, you're right, St. John's and Calvert. Right across Rob Boulevard.
All right.
And I'd add too that the community, which heavily utilizes Stanton, it would be a short walk for them from their house to.
All right. I'm going to go to Ms. Tomasini on the last Stanton question. Then we're going to, Ms. Johnson, or Director Johnson's already touched on field space. I'll open up the floor to field space questions. Then we'll close it out with the football. It is 7:45, and I want to be respectful of my staff, as in the city staff, not my staff personally. But yeah, Ms. Tomasini.
Yeah, thank you. I'll let Stan. You'll take the football and the fields, and I had a clarification on. So we identified $80,000 in initiatives for esports arena and a gym. Is that the money that's being given by the state, or is that in addition to the money that's being given by the state?
So that is for additional staffing for Stanton Community Center. Stanton certainly is heavily utilized. However, the staffing is not such that is matched with PIP. Alderman Gay, you often ask me, tell me again why Stanton isn't open on holidays. And that's because of staffing. We have full-time staff, very little part-time staff. And so that is to allow us to begin to expand the programming at Stanton, because they have not been invested in, as far as staffing is concerned, to be able to run additional programs.
You say initiatives for, so in the budget, it says initiatives for esports arena and gym, $80,000. That is not for capital improvement. That's for staffing.
That is correct. That's for staffing because they're understaffed, and Stanton
And then the floor
is not in a community where we would have, oh, I'm sorry, I was still speaking. Stanton is not in a community we would have one or two people kind of running that center. We wouldn't do it at PIP, and we wouldn't do it at Stanton. So we want it to be staffed appropriately so that we can meet communities' needs as far as programming is concerned.
Got it. Yeah. And so then the money for the floor is all being allocated in the grant by the state.
If you look
Think-
within, if you look
Go on,
within,
Ms. Buckley.
yeah, I just,
This is our city. Oh, okay. I just was clarifying for the, sorry.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you're referencing staffing money, you're looking in the operating budget, you would need to look in the capital budget for that information.
So the floor is being covered. It's not being covered by city budget. It's being covered. The E-floor is being covered by the grant from the state that has to be spent at Stanton.
I'd say the vast majority of the esports floor is being covered by the state funding. That's correct.
And do we know the cost? Because I think what we're saying is there a cost that could be spent on some of our basic needs that's not being covered by the grant that could be invested into Stanton Center or into our fields?
So, so that distinction that it's not just which book do you look in for the information. The capital budget and the operating budget are very different pots of money, and there are restrictions on what you can use those for. So it's not really a case of sort of like all money is fungible kind of idea where you can just like freely move money back and forth. To Director Johnson's point earlier, there are a lot of different projects related to recreation, including fields and stuff like that, that's within the capital project, within the capital budget. And the approach has been, to her point, much more of a both and. So there's money in there for all of those different things. I think the question that I'm hearing from you is, are there more operating side?
Yeah, I think I see it. Well, so when I look at project 40037, 1.625, and the money from the state, I think, is 1.2. Is that correct?
What I'm trying to figure out where you're heading.
So I'm heading to 1.625 minus 1.2 is money is a difference, and that's probably the difference, right? The extra 400,000.
Right, but that 400,000 is
the capital projects.
It's within the capital budget.
Right.
So it needs to go to capital
projects. Right. So probably not childcare, but I'll let Stan speak to field space and where that money could be spent to serve basic needs.
Well, let me clarify too that this money is not just for an esports arena or gym. This money is for a whole phase of the renovations of Stanton Community Center, which has not been invested in for 25 years. So this money is for the restrooms to be renovated. This money is for the entrance to be renovated. This money is for security so that when people come through the door, we have similar to what we have at PIP, where we will be able to lock the doors, all sorts of things to upgrade this facility and bring it into 2025. So it's not just a gym floor, it's much more than that.
Absolutely. And Play Annapolis absolutely supports that. We're just hoping to make sure that basic needs are being met.
Oh, excellent.
All right,
Okay,
so
thank you, Emily. We heard you. You said you support it.
Yes, it is actually in the slideshow. We support Santa reservations for sure. And this is exactly, it just, the esports floor feels, and I respect what Alderman Schandelmeyer said, but there are basic needs in our fields and in some of our other spaces that are not being met, that if there is a difference between $400,000, there are kids that need fields to play on. I'll let Stan.
Unless yeah, all right, so yeah, let's go on to that, and we'll table the 400,000 for right now. Let's get into the field space and the football program, and then we'll close this out. I want us to, yeah.
I just have one more question on the funding for the Stanton Center. If there's some money that you don't use, for instance, you don't use all of the funding for this fiscal year coming in, what happens to the excess?
So it's a capital project. Capital project.
And let's not, one second, because I don't want us to jump back into the, which is project 40037. I'll allow really quickly for the city manager to just make the final summary on what's taking place with that funding there. And please don't feel obligated to go into as much detail as we have within the budget process. This has been an open discussion in the finance committee. So just let's close that out really quickly.
Yeah, no, I just that actually was going to be kind of where I was headed, was that the the rules around how money gets used, what it's available for, that there is a whole set of rules about that. The finance committee, this is a big part of what they do, is look at that overall picture. Where's the money? What can we use it for? You see that there are a whole series of amendments to the proposed budget that are in there, and that really is the correct. That's really sort of the correct venue for that. We can definitely offline get into those details if you want to kind of find out more about how the local government finances work. Totally happy to talk about that. But this is probably not the right place for that. And we maybe can take that offline because I feel like in some sense, like we're taking over the conversation that's really a council conversation in this setting. So I want to make sure that focus gets back to the council members and the questions that you guys have.
Yeah, and I want to try to, let's talk about the programming. And the changes or concerns there, and as she just mentioned, everything else can take place offline. I do, want Mr. Womack's concerns to be addressed, though, as it relates to, and particularly the football programming. So I'll turn the floor over to him on that. I'll allow the director or her representative to respond. And then maybe we'll do, one rebuttal, and then we'll close it out there, because I don't want this to get too contentious when, the real thing is that we somehow figure out a way to ensure that our children's basic needs are met. So let's go with the flag or the football programming, so that we can figure out what is going on there. I don't want duplication of programs either, and particularly if we could give it to said nonprofit to extend programming or whatever. And so, Mr. Womack, I'll allow you the floor, and then Director Johnson or your representative.
Thank you. Well, I'm concerned based on just the football program. I mean, you know, we've been doing football here in the city. Actually, we started way back in '89. There was a lapse in the coverage. We came back in 21. So one of the things that the director had testified to for her football application was that she was going into a developmental league with the county, which would be the C League. The county does not offer a developmental league. We actually offer a developmental league. We start kids at 4 years old, and they play flag football from the time they're 4 years old to 6 years old. We had 3 flag football teams with the kids of that age last year. And then they move into tackle football at the age of 7 and 8 years old. So we have a developmental program, and we have a feeder program. And the director had suggested that her program was gonna feed our program. The issue that we take with this, and it is an issue, is that we feel like we should have been contacted and we should be involved if there's going to be a competing program to be developed with the city. We were really blindsided by this. We didn't know that the city Recreation Parks was going to do a football program, and we just don't think it's needed because we have a thriving program. We have over 400 kids in our program right now, and we'll probably have two more flag football teams this year based on our registration.
Director Johnson, do you want to discuss the plans for Parks and Recs? And I'm sorry, I know this is redundant because you've just also done this on the 27th, so my apologies.
Sure, no worries. Thank you for the opportunity. So our program, so developmental, what we consider developmental is a little bit different than from what Mr. Womack is considering developmental. We are playing in a league that is not as competitive as the league that the All-Stars play in. And there's nothing wrong with the All-Stars program. We are not, trying to offset it or steal their children or anything like that. They are a competitive program, which the city of Annapolis absolutely needs. And it is a thriving program. Our concern in hearing from parents throughout the city is a couple of things. There is no developmental program. When I say developmental, I'm talking if you're 8 and you decide you want to play football for the first time, or if you're 10 and you want to play football for the first time, it's very tough stepping on a competitive team. There are rules where the coaches have to play each player a certain amount of time. We're hearing that is not always the case, which is fine. There is a place for those youth, and that is to come and play with us, because you will get playing time. We are doing the fundamentals. We are doing punt, pass, kick, play. Our focus is not going to be on winning. And if a child, again, I'll share our philosophy is to expose youth to as many opportunities as possible so that they can determine what their interests are. We want to be the first place that a child who's not playing flag steps onto the football field to play tackle football and doesn't have to be scared to death, blocking or, tackling or getting ready to be tackled across from someone who really knows what they're doing and they've been playing for the All-Stars for 4 or 5 years, or, another team in the county. Our goal is to have them play and say, oh, that was a good season. I started the season, I finished the season. We didn't win a lot of games, but I really like football. Now I feel a little bit better. I think I'm ready to go to the All-Stars. So we have two very different groups that we would be targeting. And I think we would actually be a feeder system for the All-Stars. And I do want to clarify, this is not my program. It's a departmental program for the city of Annapolis. Rosalind Johnson has nothing to do with this program other than managing it. We've heard from parents, and we are responding to their concerns for their youth to be able to start playing football. So we're trying to plant the seed. They can grow the seed with the All-Stars.
If I could respond to that.
Mr. Womack, I will allow, a response. Briefly, it is 8:01, but before you do so, I have to recognize the alderman first. He has his hand up.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. So Mr. Womack, the point of the All-Stars, you guys have like a pretty serious competitive program. Like you want to train your kids to get into really good high schools and eventually get into like, hopefully with the goal of then getting into like really good college programs, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Hell yeah. I was a all-state center up in Maine myself, back when I was a little bit bigger, a little bit healthier. Director Johnson, yours is, I could effectively call it a goof around league, correct?
I won't say a goof around league. Jocks and real athletic people I'll say it's the starter league. It's the starter league. It's a bench rider league. I'll go with that. So yes.
Okay.
But we want to be serious about the fundamentals and about having a positive experience, starting a season and finishing the season. And our focus is not going to be on winning.
Okay. So I understand the competing for, I think really the only main issue that we have on this front, because it does seem we're going for different demographics on competitiveness, similar to, here's a really bad metaphor. There's a burger food truck that operates out of Clock Tower Plaza next to the really high-end restaurant Grapes Wine Bar. They don't eat each other's demographics for food. Very different customer base. But I do think that we do have an issue where we're competing over space. So because we do have a limited field space in our city, how is that managed with public, the schools, the All-Stars versus the city's public league? What gets priority? What puts out? How do we ensure that the All-Stars get significant field space too? Because the city does have a vested interest in the All-Stars. We have given them significant grants. We want to make sure that they succeed. We've had a lot of success stories with kids coming up through the All-Stars programs, going into high schools, going into colleges. I don't know if any have gone pro, but if they have, awesome, and I'd love to see more of that happen. But so we want to make sure they get access to what's our plan for ensuring that everybody gets a slice of that pie.
Thank you. This won't affect their access at all. We're not going to start out and have 12 teams, 8 teams, or even 4 teams. It's going to take a while to build teams up. We have Collison and we have Waynes-Wayland that we feel are getting ready to come online. So we have 2 additional linear fields that are getting ready to come online that we don't currently have. We are not going to have enough teams to utilize both fields. So that will not be an issue either.
Okay. Will they be, I apologize if this is a silly question, but will they even be playing around the same time? Will our public league be playing in the summer and the All-Stars start their practices in the fall? Or is this all going to be overlapping during the same season?
It will more than likely be the same season. Fall season, so we'll be in the same. We won't be playing the same teams. So it will be somewhat different, but it will be excuse me. It will probably start August 1st and go up until early winter or end of fall.
And Mr. Womack, is that the same time period when the All-Stars play?
Absolutely, that's the same time frame. And I need to add too that the program that Recreation Park City has offered, they applied to the Football Coaches Association with Anne Arundel County, which is the same football league that we play in. First of all, they don't have a developmental league, so I'm not sure where that's coming from. If you apply to them, And if you want to go into their C League, the C League is basically just an overflow league. But these kids are still going to be tackle, football. It's not going to be kick, pass, punt, your whatever. There's no developmental league in the county, right?
Well, and it's my understanding that the county denied entry into the league.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry. We gotta raise put a hand up. Alderman Shandemeyer.
That's all I got.
Alderman Huntley.
I'm going to kind of turn the topic a little bit, still sticking on this point of football, but a different line of questioning. So do you want to wrap up what we were talking about before, or can I
go? You can ask this. I'll turn it over to Mr. Womack for his final comment in response to Ms. Johnson, and we'll close out on this.
Cool.
It is 8:06. We've been on this ID for some time, so
right. Can I actually, I'll direct my question to Director Johnson. I guess you probably have the data for both. So this new league we're talking about would be open exclusively to city residents. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then our other football teams that play, or football leagues that play on city fields, what percentage of them are city residents right now, roughly?
The football teams that play on city fields, I would say they meet the 75% threshold, but I'll defer to Andrew Patterson, who's on, for that number.
And yeah, that number would have to be based on rosters that would have to be turned into us, and then we check with MIT and their system. We find out the actual number that live in the city.
So it's somewhere between 75% and 100%, but we don't know exactly.
It's about 95%. I can tell you, we're the only organization that's doing football right now. 95%.
Thank you very much,
of our
Mr.
players.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you. I figured they would have the number on the top of their head, but appreciate you answering that. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
Wait, so I see on here though that PAL is also they do, but I guess you're saying because they aren't in the city, you are the only team that operates in the city.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Right,
I'd
but
also share
two
too that-
organizations.
What? 1 second. We got let's go, Mr. Womack, and then Ms. Johnson. You'll close us out there.
When we're talking about
Or do you have
Ms.
Tom? Do you have a question, or I don't know if she? Okay.
When we're talking about PAL, there's some overlap there because, even though PAL is technically in the county, they're landlocked by the city. You can't get to PAL unless you go through the city. So they're going to be pulling kids from the city if they're allowed to play in the league. Last year, they only had one team. The requirement is that you have at least 3 teams coming into the county's league. So it's kind of up in the air with them. But if they're allowed in, they will be pulling from probably Bay Ridge Gardens and probably Robinwood and that particular area. So it's going to be some competition there too.
I'll let Ms. Johnson or Director Johnson go, and then we'll close out. I will also say, though, that although I've never played in competitive football here within the city, I do remember
in a meeting
at one point that there were like PAL,
3 teams,
and I could be getting it wrong. I just remember at peak there, Pop Warner was very, very popular, and there were quite a few teams around, and everybody, had their crews that they rocked with. I know, Pasadena Chargers and Cape and everything. And so I obviously appreciate that we have a home team. I like that that the Annapolis All-Stars represent Annapolis. And I think to the alderman's point, that's the reason that they are the primary recipients of, physical activity money that we provide in community grants in particular. I can't think of any other programs that provide physical activities that are receiving funds like that. And so, Director Johnson, your last comments on this, and if there needs to be continued conversation on this, I will make that final point.
Sure. Certainly, again, I will share that from a professional recreation and park standpoint, I think we're doing a disservice to our youth here in the city of Annapolis because we need to have the developmental spectrum. The All-Stars are very competitive, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think we need to offer that startup piece. And yes, we will be doing tackle. Tackle is developmental. And I say that in that we are not going to be playing the competitive teams. We're going to be playing the other, I don't want to say goof off teams either, because we will take it seriously. But we're going to be playing the less competitive teams. And then when the children get better, then they can go to the All-Stars. So I think we have two completely different demographics. There is nowhere in the city for that. The public school system now has middle school sports, so that continuum piece is there, but it's hard for a youth to walk onto a field for the very first time when they're old enough to be playing tackle football and they're playing with a very competitive team. It does not work. Other jurisdictions do not have it that way. And we are not competing at all with the All-Stars. We're not going to be trying to steal their best kids, their best players. Their best players aren't going to want to play for us because we're not focused on winning. We are focusing on developing those skills and providing a safe space for them. You're muted, Alderman.
Thank you so much. We have basketball too, correct?
Yes, we have basketball, football, and baseball.
And Parks and Rec has basketball too, correct?
We have basketball as well. We have an adult league. So we have multiple leagues. We have multiple teams, and I think the All-Stars actually play in one of our leagues. So absolutely.
Okay. First off, I do think this was this did need to happen. Obviously, otherwise, Play Annapolis would not have come to the city council and gave us the slides and expressed their concerns. And so, I want to thank them, obviously, for being here and asking or sharing their perspective today. I think the three council people here agree that we have to continue to make investments in programming and in supporting recreation and parks. And the reason that we brought this here is because the Committee is Housing and Human Welfare. Recs and Parks is a huge role in human welfare and the quality of life our communities rely on. And so I don't want anyone to leave discouraged. I hope that what I really would like is that the city's Parks and Recs Advisory Board, play a significant role in either addressing the concerns of Parks and Recs and rectifying them with the department, or if there has to just be some collaboration. And I don't think that the moving forward, the Housing and Human Welfare Committee should, play referee. I really do. We think we have to get that commission to step in and, assist if there are concerns, whether it relates to communications or concerns about investments. I think, again, that's the prime opportunity for you all to get together and ahead of the budget and, make those concerns known with the commission, and they bring them to the department, and that's how things are supposed to work. And, clearly something went wrong there. If nothing changes on the 2nd, I just think that means that you have the opportunity to fix that so that we can, make sure those things are rectified in FY27. Any other further comments from my colleagues on ID 1025? All right, we're all set. I also do want to thank the director and her team for joining us. It's not easy, in particular because this is one of the departments that interfaces with the public every single day. They are not in offices where the public has to schedule to come in. And so I tip my hats off to your staff and the work that you all have done. Parks and Recs has gone through significant transformation for the better, and so I appreciate you all as well. So we'll close out on ID 10525. And I appreciate everyone's time. If there are any other questions, please email me or call me offline. Next item on the agenda is ID 9325, Police Behavior Modification Diversion Program. I will follow up with the acting city manager on this. What we had discussed 2 meetings ago in our 412 meeting was that HACA would receive this funding to move forward with their version of lease modification that they've been doing with the nonprofit. And I just want to make sure that finance is getting that money out to HACA either through direct payment, or if their supplemental appropriation needs to come to the city council, that's done before we lose that money because the fiscal year is about to end.
Yeah, you and I can definitely connect later. I'm mindful of the time as well.
Perfect. All right. Thank you again.
Yep. No worries.
Next item on the agenda. Oh, any questions from my colleagues? I'm sorry. Okay. We'll close out on ID 9325. Next on that item on the agenda is R1725, 2025 Transit Development Plan for the City of Annapolis. And Director Moore is here, and I appreciate you too for jumping in there earlier, in particular because that was not your place. So I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, Chair Alderman Gay and committee members Shandemeyer and Huntley. I'm Director of Transportation Parking, and as requested, I'd like to give you a kind of a brief overview of what we've done on our transit development plan. This plan was presented twice before at our Transportation Committee meeting on the 7th, Environmental Matters on the 8th. So if you don't mind, I'll just kind of go through what it's all about. And I'll start with this closing statement and I'll come back with it. But one of the things, I think you all have gotten a copy of it. If you haven't, you can make sure you do. But adoption by the City Council, acceptance does not obligate the City of Annapolis or Maryland Department of Transportation, Maryland Transit Authority to fund any particular part of this improvement plan. Implementation of any improvement is a function of funding, which is what we're going through right now with our budget. So basically, this TDP serves as a strategic roadmap to give us a guide of what we should be doing, what we can do over the next several years. And as I made mention, it's a part of what we need to do to remain in good standings for federal funds through the MTA, which we're a sub-recipient. So every 5 years, we do this. And to kind of give an example, in our last one of 2019, on-demand or microtransit was one of the things that was offered. And we got to it last year as a recommendation. So it's not a binding agreement, nor does the adoption obligate us to take any major steps. But most importantly, we want to see what others are looking at for the betterment of our system here. So it kind of builds upon and formulates goals and objectives for the public transportation that we operate. We review and assess current transit services. It identifies unmet transit needs. And as I mentioned, a short-range goal of a 5-year plan. And this uses a basis for future federal and state funding. And like I mentioned, the applications for getting monies from the MDOT. But the way this was all put together, it started way back in June of 2024. We've had public advisory committees that had, the Transportation Committee has been a part of it, rider surveys. There have been 3 face-to-face meetings here at our location with drivers, riders, people that are, like I mentioned, stakeholders, And, we've had the public comment that was open where surveys were given out on board, and they were also on our website. So, what we're looking at, our customers that ride, different times, morning, evening, just once a week. What are their type of rides, required, doctor visits or the maintenance of going to, stores, or is it just for leisure? And I shouldn't say just for leisure, but more leisure. Back in 2017, I believe it was, at the time, it was Alderwoman Shanika Henson who came up with the K through 12 will ride for free during school hours or school time. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. that's still in existence. And then we have a summer program where it's like $35 for the whole summer. But students, matriculating students, so we would go with the $1 fare for those that are United States Naval Academy, excuse me, or St. John's College. So our community members that were part of these folks were, of course, our local community and what we need to do. And as we reroute or make some changes to our routes that currently exist. Alderman Savage asked had some questions when it was presented at the Transportation Committee on the 7th, and our transportation planners are actively working on that. So I'll have an updated package for you the middle of next week. But remember, adoption of this is really, it's not that we're stamping anything saying that this is what we're going to do, or we're taking anything of what was being told or what was being suggested. One of the things we're finding, as you know, with our on-demand service, microtransit, we're tweaking it just a little bit more each day to see what we actually can do and how it can be a feeder service for other areas. One big thing, if anybody's still here with us with the Education Committee, the majority of the students that go to Annapolis High live in Annapolis City, but the high school is in the county. So looking at areas like that, with our partners in Anne Arundel County Department of Transportation, there is a bus that actually goes there, which is the yellow. We operated it up until 2018, but it was all county and it goes to the mall. So our buses still go to the mall and transfer, they can transfer to that yellow bus as they once did, once before. But sometimes you hear stories about, well, that brown route that comes down Forest Drive and makes a right on Weaver Road, can't it make the left and go down to the high school? It's only a mile, but you know what? During rush hour, a mile is 15 or 20 minutes. And remember, these are connecting with other routes. So we need to look at how we do another feeder service. And of course, the county is.
Director Moore?
Yes.
If you don't mind, Alderman Shandor has a question.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Doesn't the brown route also stop at Annapolis Town Center?
It does. It
Okay.
stops on that part of Forest Drive at Harker Place.
Okay, thank you.
And then the green route coming the other way at Annapolis Town Center on the West Street side, also going to the mall. That's
Okay.
correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Just trying to get the routes in my head here.
Okay, yep.
And just clarity on, so there's you mentioned, because I do remember, if I missed school back then, you would take the red off of Hilltop, then transfer to the yellow. And so you said that it stopped in 2018. Is it back online, and does the city still own that?
No, that's a good question. When I said we stopped operating in 2018, the county took it over. So the yellow still does operate from the mall. And you're absolutely right. The brown, the green, do pick up, just as you mentioned, the red that will go to the mall and makes those connections. I believe they kept the same schedule as we did, which left at the top of the hour. I believe Anne Arundel County Department of Transportation during the beginning of school did something called a shooter. They had a second bus that went at the bottom of the hour that went straight to the school versus making the route that the yellow would make. But I can, fact check myself on that, how that yellow route is actually working. But you are absolutely right. The browns, it still exists, but it's operated by the county. But the red, coming from, Eastport, the brown as well, and the green coming straight down West Street is still connections to the yellow at the mall.
So I had this. All of my colleagues, do you all have the transportation, everything they've sent over, right?
Yes.
And so do you any questions on any of this or okay, well, I have two quick questions then.
And Alderman Gay could go after you, but I do have one question. Sorry, I just didn't get off mute fast enough, but happy to go after you.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. I'm just looking at the slides. It has on page 11, it says conceptual budget.
Yes.
I'm curious why something, for example, like the New Carrollton Express would be pushed out to year 5. Obviously, I do think the microtransit is critically important, and I, support everything that you've been doing, and particularly in Eastport with that. But I look at the New Carrollton is the only way to connection to 2 major cities. I'm wondering why that would be something that would be out so far.
We can take a look at that and get an actual answer from KFH as to why that conceptual budget was put that way for that particular one. I don't have an answer for you, so I'll find out what the rationale was. Because it's looking at, like you're reading right there, year 5 parole, New Carrollton Express, but it says possible MDOT MTA service. So that's probably what they may, help us out with there. Wouldn't really be I would doubt that it would really be a DOT service to New Carrollton. There was a 921 bus run by another company through MDOT that went from the city of Annapolis to New Carrollton. I don't know when it stopped, but probably just before the pandemic.
And so as it exists currently, if you want to get from New Carrollton to the city of Annapolis using public transportation, you obviously can't use our buses. And I don't expect us to have a route that connects every hour to New Carrollton. That would be a bit much, but I'm assuming there's a state route that connects to a city route. And is that in Parole, the town center, or is it Parole, Annapolis?
Yeah, one of the things that the county is doing, putting together a transit center, if you will. It was going to be the west side of the mall off of Bestgate on that side. But it looks like it may be at Harry Truman Park and Ride, because you have Greyhound that comes in and that's where they go. You have the commuter buses that go to Baltimore and Washington out of Annapolis, during rush hour during the week, and that's where they'll go. So most likely that'll be where the hub will be. Once they build that, we will definitely have to rethink how we connect with them. Because right now, as you know, we're on Jennifer Road by the JCPenney side, across from the jewelry store. So I don't think ground has been broken yet, but once it does, I think that could be a 2.5 to 3.5 year project. But we can definitely talk about what they're doing as well. And I should get you guys a copy of the county's TDP, which they finished the summer of 2024. And the county's also working on, they have a draft, I'll get that to you as well, called Safe Route to Transit. So there's a bunch of studies that are going on that are studying how we can get there from here. So MTA number 70 bus runs every day. I think it's on a hour and 20-minute headway. That's their longest route. So going to Cromwell to make changes, going to Baltimore to make changes, but that's the long way around if you go into Fort Meade, New Carrollton, or DC off of rush hour during the week. Because how do you get there? Public transportation, if it's a Saturday or middle of the day, when you don't have these commuter routes going.
I'm actually shocked that the county would move the transit hub from the mall to Harry Truman, considering that the mall also, you want to I thought the whole purpose is to connect transit to, the major economic hubs and where, people are going to eat and doing business. And Harry Truman is 15 minutes from the mall by bus?
Yeah, it's deals with mall management. They really wanted it. This has been going on for 3 or 4 years. Most likely it'll still stop there, but that's just where they're going to build their hub.
Okay.
Because they got parking and all. We will still need to stop there because you're absolutely right. Why would we bypass employment center, a meeting place where you can get so much else there with movies and everything else? They really wanted it on the other side. And maybe we'll be able to get my counterpart, Sam Sneed, or somebody from planning, Public Works and their transportation planning, to come up and give us an update on something like that, the transportation committee or this committee, wherever we see that you like.
That'd be fantastic. And then my last question, because we talk so much about it with Rex and Parks and Play Annapolis, with what you've created, which is really, really good. And I'm looking here with the micro transit routes and, creating these mobility hubs and, kind of positioning the city into these blocks. How further can funds used that we'll receive from grants from the state, et cetera, be used to connect us better to recreational facilities within the city and county, really? And in particular, just maybe even one route that is specifically designed to connect only to maybe after school care in the evenings.
That's a really good question. And what's happening here, and even the MTA, Maryland Transit Association, which agency, which is the 13th largest in the country. Anytime you get federal funds, you can't use your service for any kind of charter, whether it's for hire or for free. So it would have to be on a regularly established route. So to build it, and they will come, but it's got to be there. We could put another bus on there, but rerouting something, and that's what this team was doing. The TDP was looking at what the needs are, where we have these unmet needs. And of course, the high school is a big one because the kids, the majority of them are coming from our area within the city. I would say a good 85%. So what we could, look at as far as building other routes or build out, I think we have some money that's maybe in our amendments that will look at studies from, let's say, for example, even though it's maybe not where you're specifically speaking of, but Bay Ridge to Edgewater. Forest Drive Quarter is a big one because we want to look at safety things of how crosswalks and bus shelters and bus stops line up with everything where it's safer to go. With that shared asset belonging to the county, the state, and the city, just getting things like snow removal was, kind of hard for us to do, safe route for the kids that come off Taylor going right to the middle school. And that's one of the big things that, Parks and Recs and DPW, helped out the county to make sure our kids were safe. So we may want to look at things that we can actually do that makes sense and how do you actually run it? Because what the on-demand service did was replace two underperforming routes. One was the Orange route, which only operated Monday through Friday. So we could look at something that we need to do just Monday through Friday. The thing is with a Pulse, your goal is to run something every 30 minutes. Every 45 minutes to an hour, you get lucky with it, but it's not really taking you where you want to go when you want to go. So looking at the 30 minutes, but on-demand service is going to take you when you want to go when it's operating. Like right now, at 8:34, I have microtransit out there. Our goal is once you make the reservation on your phone or you call the office here, if you have the downloaded the service, it'll tell you where your bus is. And, our goal is 20 minutes or less. And I would say 90% of the time we're getting 20 minutes or less, barring traffic, weather, or anything else. Yes, we've had 30 minutes, certain things going on, boat show or other hiccups downtown. But that would be something we want to do and look at how we expand that geo fence to pick up more in the area that you just made mention. So there's opportunities on how we do that from an operating budget. And as Vicki, helped us, explain to us what, the capital expenditures with, buying land, buying buses, buying things of that nature. But operating a new route, changing a route, that would be, falling under our operating expenses to do this. And one last thing, if I may, looking at transit like a service, which we are, like a library, which we're not, but, the fares that we get, clearly do not cover our operating expenses. So, when we look at, okay, what about the fare free? But we do take in a fair amount of money also with organizational paid fares like Department of DGS and other smaller ones like the detention center, Lighthouse Shelter, Arundel Lodge, all that combined is about, 290,000 plus our fares. So when we go fare free, it'll be our job to kind of figure out where we're going to make up that, $590,000.
So if we go fare, and Alderman Huntley, I'm so sorry, but the fare free, if we go fare free, why would we have to cut off contractual services? I mean, doesn't the county use a form of fare free, and or do they have to cut off contractual services with these nonprofits? Or
well, I think they're probably getting, well, see, they're paying us. The county gives us money because we operate in the county. The other monies that we'll be getting in, which is they're paying for fares for the government or the state employees. So they don't have to go for reimbursement. Those that work in the government offices downtown and park at the stadium, that's called the state shuttle that operates Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. The other ones are paying for the service to give to those folks that are in the Lighthouse Shelter, detention center. So if it's free, there's no need to give them anything. So that's the thing. That I hear what you're saying. Well, if it's a pilot, maybe they'll still give us money. Well, we can only ask that of the state, but chances are, if it's free, somebody in their accounting office is going to say, well, why are we paying?
Okay, I get that.
It's a thought. It's a possibility. The county may still give us money, but those that agency paid, organizational paid fares, I doubt it, because they're paying for the fare, that's there.
Okay, I really appreciate you taking this time, Alderman Huntley.
I was just going to ask, because we were talking earlier about the transit to schools. Director Moore, this is not in the plan, but I grew up in Baltimore where we didn't have school buses, right? The public transit takes you to school. And given what you're saying about the majority of the residents for Annapolis High coming from the city, where we have a fairly robust public transportation system, I know we're always working on making it better. And also knowing that the county for a long time has had a really hard time getting enough school bus drivers, has anybody floated the idea of city students taking city public transit to their high school rather than taking school buses?
Yeah, that's their personal choice, and they do. They have done it. And as I made mention with a delegate, well, it was, Alderwoman Shanika Hinson making it even easier. I can actually provide you with statistics because we have a electronic fare box that we count categories of riders of how many ride each day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or each day. I get a report each month that'll show me how many students rode in, let's just say, the month of April. It's over 1,000. They are riding. But it's free, like I made mention, from 6 a.m. to going to 6 p.m. for the after school stuff. Outside of those hours, it's $1. But I think we have all the other schools covered, whether it's Bates, Georgetown East, Annapolis Middle, Elementary. Most are middle schools that are, Annapolis Middle is the one that's most heavily used. And the Bates coming up down West Street on the green and the magenta shuttle. The high school, like I said, is a little trickier because you got to transfer at the mall. They can get off at the corner of Forest and Riva, and it's maybe 3/4 of a mile. They got to cross Riva, but yeah, they're in high school now. But that here, Alderman Huntley, that is something that we'd like to look at a little deeper, and I think the county has as well. But there's continues to be more studies that are being put together from other transportation planners on both sides. Currently from, I forgot the name of the organization that the county's using right now.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks. I just was kind of thinking, look, if they're struggling, if they're struggling to meet service and we have a way that we could be meeting it, maybe it makes sense to have them spend some of that money that they're spending on school buses on our buses and strengthen city transportation networks while inculcating good public transit habits in our young people. But just sort of throwing it out there.
Yeah, still a very good option for sure.
Thank you.
Alderman Shandemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one question and one point. So one, I do really want to push back on the whole, it takes us 15 minutes to go down Riva for these buses. I'm on Riva 3 days a week, man. No, it doesn't. Because I go out of Truman Park and Radford by commuter bus, and we really are having a gap in service to getting our kids into Annapolis High. And I do think the benefits of going that route outweigh the cons. The actual planning of how and what the circulation goes, I do leave to the professionals, but I really think we need to add that as a full-time route to the benefit of our students.
We can look at it, and it didn't mean it takes 15 minutes to get there. It's like you're throwing it off for where you're getting to the mall to connect with the other routes. We just have to make changes with the other. It's only 3/4 of a mile down, and certain times making those turns to come out of the Heritage turnaround, because now your terminus point to go back the other way is still the mall. So going down, no, it doesn't take 15. You're absolutely right. You might be able to get there in 3 or 4, but then making your way back down to the mall, your whole route could be off, 12 to 15 minutes, or maybe just 10. But just 10 when we have bad traffic starts throwing the monkey wrenches. But that's something worth looking into for sure.
The second question is, so is that federal funding and the need for these development of a plan every 5 years, is that why it's so hard to just change routes and adapt on the fly when we see these needs pop up?
No, not at all. They're just giving a look on what to do because they're not, they can come up with what you see, a conceptual budget. We can do anything along the way with the monies that we have because, it may just, cost a little bit more for operational cost, maybe a little bit more. Another driver, another bus, another, gallon of gas per hour, per day, per route, kind of thing when you look at your budget. But no, we don't have to wait for that. This is just required for, to be in compliance with the budget, the federal funds that we get. No, we can study something now and look at, doing a pilot with it in, X amount of time. Once we look at what that cost would be, staffing, operationally, what does that look like? So no, we don't have to wait. No, we don't have to wait 5 more years for sure.
Thank you.
The thing I just find most interesting about this is that 1,000 students a month ride the bus. That's insane. And I think, again, this has been a productive conversation from the front that everything we have discussed tonight is surrounded on our kids and their need to, access efficient transportation. And I don't know. I think we're moving in the right direction, though, for sure. I know a lot of people that take advantage of the on-demand rides, in particularly in Eastport. And so, I appreciate this. Any other questions from the committee on the transit development? Seeing none, Director Moore, did you want to close out with anything?
No, I just want to have the opportunity, and thank you, Alderman Gay, for giving me that to share more about what's actually going on in the transit world and the transit development plan, what it means, but talking more with our peers over in the county and how we can make this work for everyone. That's our biggest thing. These invisible borders need to be knocked down. The county has a little bit deeper pockets than we do as a city. And as we go into the county, we would hope that they could come in more into the city to do that reciprocal environment, to do something like that.
Thank you very, very much. I guess this will be then our 1725 is going to go to the full council because it went to the other 3 committees. Ours was the last to hear it. So it should be there in the June meeting.
Gotcha.
June 9th.
June 9th. Fantastic. All right. No other questions. We will close out on forgetting what ID this is. Sorry.
This isn't an ID, it's a resolution, Mr. Chair. So
I'm sorry, yeah. We'll close out on resolution. R1725. Is there a motion to make a favorable recommendation to the full council?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to make a motion to? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.